Call it the Buckeyes Breakdown. Every Wednesday night, we bring in Brandon Zimmerman from the ozone.net. So join him there. He's doing a ton of work setting us up for fall camp and also week one with breakdowns of each position. And we do it right here as well on Mark Rogers TV. So check out Mark Rogers TV, Ohio State, a YouTube channel with nothing but the Buckeyes there. And we break down the individual segments right there on Mark Rogers TV as well. Brandon, how you doing tonight?
Hey, I'm doing good. How about yourself?
Doing just fine. Is that a new hat?
No, I've had this one for a while. It's had to throw on the hat today because got in late last night, so kind of tired.
Yeah,
kind of lounging around today.
Yeah, you had some summer travels, as I will here in the next few weeks. I like the off-centered block O. I think it works. I like it. I don't think I've ever seen that before.
It just kind of sits off to the side. It's nice. It's nice and simple.
Woody would love it. Well, maybe not. He's pretty traditional. Maybe not.
Yeah, I need the black with the red block O, and that's about it.
Which reminds me of something I need to show you in a future show. So I'm sure you'll just be waiting in suspense over that, but it has to do with Woody Hayes and also Urban Meyer. So we're going to talk about some of Urban Meyer's top recruits, and they're all over the place on both sides of the ball. But man, when you talk defensive line, it is ridiculous, and more so on the outside than the inside, but even the defensive tackles are studs. So this unit should just explode, and there are all sorts of projections about statistics and awards and then draft status that just are mind-blowing. But Buckeye fans care about what's going to be produced on the field starting with week one and then, of course, against Baker Mayfield. So kind of take us through the D-line and how you see this set up.
Well, the defensive line's definitely the most fun group to cover. I mean, it is amazing how deep they are. When you've got, third and fourth string guys that would probably start at, the 75% of the colleges around the nation. So it's just kind of crazy how much talent they have right now. And it doesn't appear like it's slowing down anytime soon. Like even when you look at the 2018 class, it just seems like there are more guys that are going to step right in. This year, as you mentioned, the guys that kind of get the headlines are the defensive ends. Your starters out there are Sam Hubbard and Tyquan Lewis, who both came back last year. Lewis was kind of a surprise. Hubbard, everyone kind of thought he would. Not that he's not a NFL caliber player. It's just no one really thinks that Hubbard's at the level where he is going to be yet. If you remember, Sam Hubbard was a lacrosse player, came in and he's played tight end, safety, linebacker, kind of settled down at the defensive end spot. So Hubbard coming back was not as big of a surprise. Tyquan Lewis was a pretty big one. Everyone kind of thought he was going to be gone and be a first or second round pick. Comes back and regains his starting role. Out there at defensive end with him, you've also got Jalen Holmes, who I personally think was the best defensive end last year on the Buckeyes team. Didn't start any games. Stats may not jump out at you like he was the best or that he played better than Hubbard or Lewis. But when you actually watch the games, Jalen Holmes would come in and dominate the plays that he was in. He may be like a half second too late to get the sacks, but made a lot of tackles for loss and was just getting a lot of pressure. And then out there with him as another backup was Nick Bosa, who many people consider one of the best defensive ends in the nation. Doesn't even start for the Buckeyes right now. Does play quite a bit, and just like the Buckeyes do at cornerback and wide receiver, they rotate those defensive ends through quite a bit. So those are the four main guys that kind of play out there at the defensive end spot. Behind them, you got Jonathan Cooper, who was a 5-star last year. You've got Chase Young, who was a 5-star this year. So you're looking at 3 deep there at defensive ends with, 5-star NFL quality type guys. When you slide into the defensive tackle side, you've also got a lot of guys there who are kind of producers. They may not be well known to the nation, but you got Draymond Jones, who moved into a defensive tackle last year and played quite a bit, and started as a redshirt freshman after Sprinkle went down. A lot of people are really expecting him to come on big time this year as a redshirt sophomore. A lot of mock drafts even have him going into the first round just because of the potential and how big of a leap they think that Draymond Jones is going to make this year. You've also got Michael Hill and Tracy Sprinkle, who are going to be battling for that defensive tackle starting spot beside of Draymond Jones. Both of them were starters last year, but like I mentioned, Tracy Sprinkle got hurt. Draymond Jones jumped in and kind of seized that job. A lot like what we're going to talk about at the linebacker spot next week when Booker goes down and Baker jumps in. So that's kind of what happened there at the defensive tackle spot. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with Hill and Sprinkle alongside of Draymond Jones. But just like the defensive ends, Larry Johnson's going to, rotate the defensive tackles quite a bit. And that's not even mentioning guys like Robert Landers and Davon Hamilton, who played quite a bit at defensive tackle. Jayshon Cornell, who was a 5-star defensive end, I think 2 or 3 years ago, who was moved into the defensive tackle spot. You've also had last year, you had 4-star defensive tackle Malik Barrow, who's also going to play into that defensive tackle role. So much talent there on the defensive line. It's one of those things where you really wonder what they're going to do with all of this talent. But there is so much talent there. Tony Girdman, our terrific beat writer, on July 3rd wrote a article about how Ohio State could actually set the record this year for most defensive linemen drafted. Records currently at 5, held by the 2003 Hurricanes. This year, you really could look at 6 guys being drafted for the Buckeyes: Sam Hubbard, Tyquan Lewis, Jalen Holmes, Draymond Jones, if he decides to come out early, and then Michael Hill and Tracy Sprinkle. All 6 of them realistically could be drafted somewhere there, and the Buckeyes could set the record. And the crazy thing is even if all 6 of those people got drafted to the left, you really would feel comfortable with how the Buckeyes are sitting next year for that starting defensive line and the backup. So definitely their deepest and most talented position. It's going to be fun to watch this year and see what Larry Johnson can get out of them.
Brandon, I think a lot of Ohio State fans would be surprised that Draymond Jones was 6th on the team in total tackles with 51. That surprises me just looking at the stat line right there. Also, Robert Landers is a guy that became one of my personal favorites very early in the season. Here was a guy that wasn't necessarily starting, but made a lot of big plays, really pushed the pocket and stuffed up the run. Had 8 tackles for loss last season at a defensive tackle position. But, you've got him, and just about everybody else does, a little bit buried on the depth chart because of all the talent around him. But there's a guy that, again, for me, he was a guy that on the field made plays last year.